Hello chess fans, today I wanted to analyze another over the board game I played. So in this game I decided to start off with 1 c4, and I actually played against this opponent a few times before, and they'd only played the King's Indian against me. So I pretty much knew what I was expecting. They went for knight f6, I went knight c3, and here they could still go for e5, but they decided to go for g6, stick to their guns. I went e4, and the reason I go e4 instead of d4 is because if I go e4, then they can't go for the Grunfeld. After d4, they can go for the Grunfeld with d5. But okay, now we get into the main line of the King's Indian. Here they castle, and here the main line is knight f3. This has been the main line for a very, very long time, and you can actually transpose this by playing knight f3 first. But here I decided to play something that's actually very, very trendy recently, which is called the Semi-Averbahk, and it's with this move bishop e3. The idea is, the reason why it's so trendy is because white just keeps very, very flexible. White could still go for knight f3 and transpose to, I'm not sure what this line is actually called. I think it's called the Gligerich system with knight f3 and bishop e3. But white could also start pushing the pawns quickly. For example, with the knight not being on f3, the queen still defends g4. And that's one of the main ideas. Now here, black pretty much has two approaches. Now, probably the best move here is knight c6, but this is something that you really, really won't often see. And against knight f6, I just recommend going d5, knight e5, and h3. And the position is sort of just pleasant, like you have more space in the center as white. But here, black's main approaches are breaks in the center, either c5 or e5. Now, first, I wanted to look at c5. Now, c5 is actually transposing to pretty much a Benoni, so you won't see this from many King's Indian players. For example, after d5, e6, these lines get really, really sharp after like takes, rook e8, something like knight d2. These lines get sharp, but there's also this move b5, or not b6, sorry, this move b5, which you have to know a lot of theory. So instead of doing all that and learning how to play the Benoni and learning this weird system against the Benoni, I think that more practical is after c5 to actually just take. And I know a lot of you were just wondering, like, wait, why can't you just take? Like, there's not enough defenders. And it's because, like, if they take back, you actually just can't take here. But what they're going to do is they're going to go queen a5, and then here you'd have to go bishop d2, and after queen takes c5, we get into a line of the Averbahk system with bishop g5, where they play queen a5, and then you have to go bishop back to d2, and now you just sort of get some sort of Maroczy bind position with the queen on c5, which is admittedly slightly better placed because the knight's not on d4 and the bishop's not on e3. Maybe they have bishop here options, but they can also go knight c6, and then you play around their bad bishop. So this, I think, is a fine line if you don't want to play a Benoni type of line. And the final move, which my opponent decided to play in the game, is e5. And this is sort of the main idea of most King's Indian players. Like, you want to go e5 and you want to break in the center. Here we go d5, which is a little bit reminiscent of the Petrosian variation. But okay, we're not actually going for the Petrosian variation because our knight's not on f3. And now here, basically, black has a few moves. If your opponent is seeing this for the first time and they don't know any theory, it's very, very unlikely they play one of the best moves. The best moves here are either a5 or knight a6, and they both, make a lot of sense because the idea is to just get a knight on c5. Now, if a5, here there's two approaches. Either the modern approach with h4 and h5 and h6, or the sort of caveman approach, which is the way this line used to be played in the 1980s, which is still very, very good. So the modern approach is to go h4, and for example, after like knight a6 to go h5, after knight c5 to go h6, and then the bishop goes back to h8, and the position is actually very, very pleasant for white, apparently. According to the engine, this is like +1. But I personally, I played this actually in an overboard game, and I got a very bad position, and I just played a lot of online games with it, and my results are actually not very good. So I decided that, queen c2 would be played here to defend this. This is also a plausible line. I decided that in this move order, maybe g4 is a little bit more human-like. And the idea is, we're fighting against the f5 break, and also we're, expanding on the king side. We want to attack the king. And we're using the fact that we haven't committed knight f3 because this is defended. Now after this, we can go for g5, knight d7, and we can just start pushing our pawns. And this sort of makes a lot more sense to me because, our idea is clear. We just want to push our pawns, and we want to prevent f5 by doing en passant. So this, I think, is a very natural position for white. We're going to push our pawns. We're going to attack on the king side. Nice position. So that would be my recommendation against a5, but now knight a6 is a little bit faster. Here h4 makes maybe a little bit more sense after knight c5 because now you pretty much have to defend this. You go queen c2, and after something like c6, h5, cd, I don't know, queen a5, I'm just clicking the main line here. There's a lot of Grandmaster games recently, all the games here are past 2022, and this is just a very, very alpha zero idea to push the pawn all the way up to h6. But I'm personally not a big fan of it. So I think that simpler, if you're trying to build a repertoire against the King's Indian, is to go for g4. And after knight c5, to go f3, and the ideas are very clear. Just go h4, h5, and you have a nice position. Again, after like here, we can transpose. Oh, at this point, they have knight h5, so we can't do that. So we'd have to go for like h4, and then once they do this, they no longer have knight h5. And something like this, we're again preventing f5. So this is, again, is at least pretty clear to me. So yeah, that's pretty much what to do. Now, my opponent in the game decided to play for knight e8, which is also a playable move. And here, like learning from the past games, you should realize what the best move is. Here, the best move is, okay, they're preparing f5, so we have to go g4. And line could continue like takes, knight f3, with ideas to go knight g5 and knight e4. And here, white is winning 70% of the games and significantly better. Okay, when said I went for f3, and f3 is just a bad move. And it's sort of a move that I played because I didn't really know what I was doing. But now I do know what I'm doing, so I would not play a move like this again. And, okay, yeah, the idea is f3 is just to keep this solid. I was expecting here, and my idea was going to be to go takes, and queen d2. But then he played bishop h6, which, when I played f3, I actually hadn't seen. But, like, while he was thinking, I saw bishop h6, and I was like, oh, yeah, what am I doing? So here, the reason bishop h6 is so good is because if I take, he has queen h4 with this fork, so I shouldn't take. Instead, I should go queen e3, but now, after takes, he's gotten rid of his bad bishop because he put his pawns on dark squares, and my good bishop because I put pawns on light squares. So it's sort of an advantageous trade, but as we'll see, the position is not so good still for black. So here, he played the move f5, and f5 is actually a bad move, but it looks so natural because, okay, that's the whole idea you've been gearing up for. Here, maybe you should go like knight d7 or knight a6 or a5 or c6 or anything but f5, because after f5, I can just take here. And you might be saying, okay, why do you take here? Why are we giving up the center and bringing black's pawn closer? Okay, first, for a few reasons. When we do this, now, whenever he moves either of these pawns, if either of these pawns commit, we have an outpost. One of the main points about the King's Indian for white is that the outpost on e4 is going to be very, very advantageous for white, and that you have to really use this fact. So that's one of the reasons we take. And if we don't take, he goes f4, he's gotten rid of his dark squared bishop and put all his pawns on dark squares, and we don't have an outpost or anything. So we definitely have to take, and after takes, I castled here. And here, the threat of f4 is actually really, really strong. For example, if my opponent went knight f6, we discussed this a little bit. Here you can go f4, and after knight bd7, if takes, then we just win a pawn, so they can't do that. Another advantageous fact about bringing this pawn here. And if they take with the knight, which is, okay, more natural, then, okay, they have this bad structure with this pawn here, which blocks this bishop. Like here, clearly white's better. So my opponent didn't allow that. They went for f4, which during the game I thought was just another concession, because now I wanted to get this e4 outpost, and you've pretty much given it to me for free. So I went queen d2, and here they again went for a strange move, queen h4. Again, here I expected like knight d7, trying to attack the outpost somehow. I was planning to go like bishop d3, but queen h4 was a little bit strange. Bishop d3, just getting on this diagonal. Knight g7, knight g2, and again here they played a little bit of a strange move. They played queen h6, but it is understandable. Here I was expecting this move, bishop f5, in which case I was planning to take here, and now queen f6. And this transposes to something similar to the game, but okay, this is a more natural move order to get to. Instead, they went queen h6, now in g3, and now they can again go bishop f5 and transpose to that same position, but okay, they went knight d7. Here I went knight e4, getting into the outpost. They went knight f6. I went knight rook g1, aligning myself with the king. And actually, at this point, I've been playing all best moves pretty much. Knight takes c4, knight takes c4, bishop f5. Here I took. Here maybe I should take here, but I was a little bit worried about him bringing this bishop here, and I really thought that my knight actually wanted to be on e4. But at this point, maybe I should just take here, because now my knight can get to d4 after this pawn moves, and then d4 can go to e6. So I took. Now he took. Now here apparently he should take this way, which I don't think any human is really going to do. This just doesn't look to make sense at all. You're just willingly going to an endgame down a pawn. So instead he took with the rook, so that after this he can go here. And now if I ever take here, he can go takes, and at least he can go here, and this pawn should be falling. So instead of that, after takes, he went rook f8. Now I go rook g4. Idea being, like, if he ever takes here, now I can go rook g1, attacking here. He defends this, and here and knight e6 should just be completely winning. So instead he went king h8 to just get out of that pin. I went rook g1. Now he goes knight e8, now that he can move. And here I've played a bad move here. I should probably go for h4. And after rook h5 attacking here, I should trade a bunch of pieces, and then get this winning position. But okay, for some reason I didn't do that. Instead I went rook g2, and I really have no idea why I played this move. Like h4 looks very, very natural to me. Actually, maybe on h4 I was worried about knight f6, but okay, yeah, then I have rook g5. Yeah, he can't take there because his rook's hanging. So yeah, I think I probably missed that. Instead I went rook g2, queen h4. I went b3 because I want to take here, but the b pawn is hanging, or c pawn is hanging. Queen e7. Here I went queen d3, and now here I have a little bit of a devious trick here. Here I'm threatening to take the rook, and after rook takes, I have rook g1. For example, like e6, I can go takes, and then after takes, here I have rook g1, or rook g8, sorry, which would be a nice mate. Instead of that, he goes here, and now here I really should have just taken. I was worried about this, but okay, again, I have the same tactic. So instead of that, I went queen c3, looking to get on the pin, and then here he played this pretty good move, knight f6. Now I played king b2, and I didn't want to go here. I can't remember exactly why, to be honest. I think it was because of something like this. If I go like f4, then he can go like knight d7, bring his knight in. Knight looks scary. So instead of that, I went king b2 because I didn't really know what to do, and then he went knight d7, and then I realized, okay, wait, now I guess I have to take. Again, you can't do this because of f4. So he went for queen takes e5, which I thought was a little bit weird here. I really expected d takes e5, and I wasn't so sure that my position is so good. I was honestly kind of worried here. But okay, instead of that, he went there, and now I went f4. Really, I shouldn't have done that. I should have went knight d4, knight e6, which we can see that I did in a second. But here I went f4, takes, rook e8. Oh, sorry, I should have asked you guys to pause the video here because I think this is a really nice move. Here, white really only has one winning move, and it's the move I played, which was knight d4. And the reason why is because if white sort of passively defends this pawn, then black has a lot of activity with all the pieces coming in. For example, like rook f2, you can get quickly mated with something like this. And then, okay, if you have to go back, then there's even more threats. And okay, not to mention here, I blunder the fort. But yeah, there's pretty much no way you're gonna either not let black get active, or maintain up a pawn. So here I decided to go for knight d4. The idea being after rook takes f4, knight e6, something like rook f2. Here I can't go here because of c5, and then I'm in this line, which means that he can at least do something like this, or he can't do something like this because he gets mated. But essentially I can't move my knight or use my knight or anything. Like if I wanted to go for like rook g7 here, he would be completely winning after knight f6 here, something like this. So I would have to instead go like king b2. And then here I just saw that pretty much my rook is getting to g7 and he can't do anything about it. And that should just be completely winning. And apparently that assessment was right. I didn't even calculate anything. So yeah, during the game I really expected him to go for this because I didn't see anything concrete. But okay, I think my opponent calculated it correctly. I thought it was my best chance forward. I thought I'd get a lot of activity here. But apparently I'm just completely winning. Which, yeah, I don't think I realized that after rook c8. Like, I even have a move like knight c7. And if he takes, again, I have this same tactic that's been very prevalent. Excuse me. So instead he went knight f6. I went knight e6, c6, king d4 defending. And I'm just going to skip over a few moves here because a lot of this is just converting the pawn up endgame. Here I managed to get my rook in finally. Trade rooks. And we'll get to a critical moment. I go rook g5. I probably shouldn't have gone rook g5 because, okay, the rook's a little bit misplaced, but I wanted to prevent knight f5. Instead, knight f7, knight h6, rook f8, knight f7 again. And here I really wanted to go knight g5, but I'm pinned, so I went king f3, and he just ignored my threat, went b5, and now I will go knight g5 in. At this point, the game is pretty much over because we're trading into a king and pawn in a game where I'm up a pawn, and yeah, those are pretty much just always winning for white unless if you're up a pawn, unless, you know, something really bad goes wrong. So here he allowed me to trade everything. Now I go king g4, and you don't even have to be that accurate. Like, you could just willy-nilly just do push pawns, and you should still be winning here. After this, you always have king h5, and this endgame is pretty much always winning, even if he gets opposition. So, yeah, I wasn't really too worried. Again, I played it accurately, though. I kept as many reserve tempos as possible. Takes. Now I go king g6, and now I just had to... I had to see that from all the way over here, but it's not that difficult because you sort of just assume the pawn endgame is winning regardless. So, yeah, we took some pawns, and now I realize I'm just way too quick. Even one thing to note that if he wanted to go a little bit quicker, like go for this, then now I have king g6, and now I'm starting to push this. So now after here, I can go for this pawn. Like, if I had to go for this pawn, for example, after takes h4, here h5, I guess, yeah, I'm still fast enough, but it's even closer. But instead of that, like he's not even close. For example, if he goes d4, like he's very far away from making a queen. So instead that he went king takes b4, I promoted, gave some checks, bring my queen in closer, and in this position my opponent resigned. So yeah, I think this was a good illustration of how to play against the King's Indian. I showed a few ideas and I showed some nice conversion. So I hope you liked this video. I apologize for not uploading in a long time. I was writing all my finals, and to be honest, like I just had to focus on my studies. So I'll get into more videos in the upcoming weeks, and I'm actually playing a tournament this weekend while this video goes up. So hopefully we'll do some recaps on that when it comes out, when I'm done with it, sorry. Yeah, see you guys in the next video.